topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready for Insights to Incite? Ready or not, it's showtime. Now get ready to listen in and watch right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join us and together we will escape the mundane. Insights to Incite, here is your host, Brandon Lawson.
But they say you are bad, or perhaps you are mad, or at least you should stay under cover. Your mind must be bare if you would dare to think you can love more than one lover. Those come from David Rovics. And, how sad it is that anyone would want to have more than one lover. Yes, simultaneously or not. This is seriously and severely sad. And yet, this is the norm for much of the world as we know it today. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank you for tuning in, whether you're listening or watching. And I have to ask, just what is it and why is it that people are constantly on the move from one lover to another? I mean, the view that many of them take, the vow that many of them take, or at least they say, is till death do us part. But in all reality, this is just a saying. Yes, to a large percentage of them, it's just a saying. It doesn't really mean anything. And there's a reason that I say that many of them say, till death do us part. You see, there are some fiancés that have agreed to make a slight adjustment to their vow and how it reads. Instead of till death do us part, they have put it as till love do us part. Did you hear that? You see, these two people, before they ever even officially become husband and wife, they're already planning their way of escape, how they can break away from the marriage and call it off. I guess they think they can do that and not break their vow. They just claim that the love's not there anymore. But it's just, I find it very unsettling when I think of that. Here they are, they supposedly committed to one another and they want to be with one another, and they're already creating an outlet. But why? Why is that? Furthermore, how is it that we have become a people that are so corrupt, that we have become so corrupt, and how we're so fixed on godlessness? Friend, this is your host, Brandon Lawson. And let me be the first to say that I don't have all the answers to this. Not to this issue, or really to any issue. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I'll be the first to say that I don't. However, I do believe that the message that I want to share with you today speaks to this. Maybe not directly, but at the same time, it does have a message there within it that correlates to the subjects of divorce, of betrayal, adultery, of breakups and the like. And so just want to take a moment right here now and say, I want to wish all of you, my listeners and viewers, a very happy New Year. A most wonderful year ahead, we hope. And today is Thursday, January 6th, and we are debuting a new series. This new series is titled RUA, the RUA series. The RUA series, in this lesson, I have to ask, but before I do want to mention two specials I have going. I have two specials that I'm running this month. They have to do with, one has to do with the speaking, and the other has to do with the coaching. The first one on speaking, I would deliver 4 messages for the price of 3, or you can get 10 messages for the price of 7. Yet they do all have to be done this year. And there's a couple other stipulations to it. So if you'd like more information, please give us a call. You see my number right there, 513-708-1517. And the other has to do with coaching. And there's 2 separate specials depending on what you go with. There is 30% off your first 6 months when you agree to an 18-month contract. And then there is 60% off your first 8 months when you agree to a 30-month contract. But again, for more information, reach out to me, and be glad to share that with you, and would love to hear from you. And in our debut lesson of this series, I want to ask you, are you a needer or a feeder? Again, are you a needer or a feeder? A needer, well, that's pretty much self-explanatory. But a feeder, which you may not realize, is a feeder is one who actually, lifts others. They feed them. They're an encourager, one who is very uplifting and is for a lack of a better way of explaining it, is actually one you want to be around. Whereas the needer is constantly in need. They end up draining you. If not financially and physically, at least emotionally, a needer will pull you down, where a feeder lifts you up. Well, how many of you remember that song by Neil Sedaka called "Breaking Up is Hard to Do"? Some of you may, maybe not. But today, as we think of our world today, is that really true anymore? I mean, from what I see, there's spouses that are ready to call it quits and file for divorce over their animal. Yeah, over their animal. Or at the simple drop of a hat, they're ready to walk out of the relationship. And that is more than disturbing, to say the least. But that's what we have today. And one reason many people look for someone other than their spouse to get their fix, if you will, is their spouse is always in need. They, no matter what they do, they can never feel like they measure up, like they're good enough. As soon as they do whatever was asked of them, then they need to do something else. And before you know it, there's something else coming. And it's more than a request. It ends up being like a demand, because now what is what they're saying. If they don't say it out loud, they think it, they feel that. And then, so, they just really feel like disassociating because that needer is draining them. Or maybe they are the needer. They're the one who's always in need. and therefore their spouse has quit trying to fill that need because they know as soon as they do this one thing they ask, there'll be something else. Then they do that, there's something else. It's never enough. It continues on and on and on. And does that make it right to call it quits, to file divorce? I'm not here to say it makes it right, but you can see how people get drained. And, of all people to drain you, you would hope it wouldn't be your spouse. Yet, that's what we find in many relationships, many households today. And in light of that, I just, relationships, especially that of a marriage relationship, relationships are meant to last. And your marriage is meant to be your first and last marriage that you enter into. They were never meant to, only last for so many years or so many months and then, pass them on to someone else. That's not what, not what God had in mind. And, this idea of, why are some people always in need of others? I'd like to take a minute to clarify and just state that I am not speaking of those who are handicapped, that require full-time supervisory, need people's attention, need someone there with them. Neither am I speaking of someone with a chronic disease or debilitating illness of such. But no, not speaking of those, but we're talking about them who just, their way of life is to always be in need and always look for handouts, always be the one to be on the receiving end, and they don't do much of anything for others, and certainly, they really don't even do much for themselves, but certainly not for others. They don't lift others up. If they lift anyone, it's themselves. And more than anything, it's their ego that's lifted. But again, why? Why are there people who constantly are in need of others? Well, one reason is greed. That's for sure, greed. And while there are other reasons that factor in as well, greed is definitely one of them. But whatever the reason is, these people are empty. Yes, such people are not at rest, but instead they are empty and unfulfilled, to say the least. When we return, we're going to dig deeper into this problem and look at it in more detail and see what we can draw from it of ways that will help us to not be this type of person. We'll be right back.
Are you on the edge of your seat and wanting more? Stay tuned as we go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Insights to Incite with Brandon Lawson right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Are you seeking a speaker or coach who speaks life into your people? If so, look no further. Brandon Lawson is one who will inspire and motivate his audience, as well as empathize and relate to all. Reach out to Brandon and let him be your speaker and life coach by sending an email to brandon@connectandimpact.net or by calling him at 513-708-1517. Brandon looks forward to speaking with you, to you, and for you. Let's connect and impact today. Insights to Incite, a real show with real-life messages. This show, which can be found on radio, TV, and our podcast, gives us insight to incite us to action and to excellence. Watch and or listen to Insights to Incite live at noon Eastern Time every Thursday on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Check out our past episodes on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us each week, and together we will escape the mundane. We are back with more Insights to Incite, so get ready and tune in to listen and watch. Now once again, let's join Brandon Lawson.
So I want to present to you three paths that lead us into unfulfillment. And the first one is greed. First of all, Greed has been described as a permanent slave. Yes, greed is permanent slavery. That's what happens when you're caught up. Greed, you never have enough. You're a slave to it. Greed never believes that enough is enough. It is indeed a fat demon with a small mouth. And no matter what you feed it, it isn't enough. Yes, a fat demon with a small mouth. Do you have that, Roxy? Thank you. Okay. And as Eric Fromm stated, greed is a bottomless pit. Yes. Greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts the person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. And as I love the way Amelie Fisher put it. She stated, greed is a strange, strange sin. All you want to do is acquire money, acquire material, acquire time, acquire energy, acquire attention. The running mantra is, I want, I want, I want. But that quickly turns to, I need, I need, I need. Suddenly, there just isn't enough time for friends, for family, for anyone. Your goal is to acquire and to make sure that what you acquire stays acquired. Your life depends on it. You don't see truth because the truth is shadowed by enormous homes, incredibly fast cars, and lavish spending. Your life no longer belongs to you, but you. Yes. I'd also add that greed is a liar. Yes. How so? Well, greed will tell you. Greed says, get this and you'll have. Or once you attain this, you'll be. And have what? Be what? How about happiness, prestige? You'll be successful. Greed says, do this or become this, and you will really have a life. But Jesus would rebuke this. In Luke chapter 12, verse 15, he stated, then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for a life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. You may have all the stuff in the world, but that's not what life's about. Two, the second path that some travel that will lead them into unfulfillment is discontent. While this is closely related to greed, discontentment as well as contentment is largely composed or comprised of one's perspective. It is of the mind. Whereas greed is tied to one's desire. It is of the heart. So I should ask you, are you one who gets caught up in the latest fad? I mean, when iPhone comes out with their latest version, will you be in line at the Apple store to be, the line that's halfway across the mall or all the way outside the mall, who's lined up and stands there for hours because you just have to have it? Or maybe it's PlayStation when they come out with their newest version. Or how about that NFL video game called Madden? A new one comes out every year. Do you have to have it? Well, whatever it is that you have a personal fetish for, I just want to remind you that A life devoted to seeking pleasure is a life committed to being discontent. So if you're constantly chasing after the latest thing, you'll never be content. You'll never be at peace. And that's what leads us into our next one, the third path, and that is unrest or a lack of peace. Simply put, without peace, you won't experience fulfillment. I mean, that's a given right there. And if your life is one, chaotic, where chaos reigns, or two, without direction, you're like that old Clint Eastwood film or movie, where you're pulled or turned every which way but loose. You can't get loose from all this stuff to where you can move ahead in life, to where you can advance and actually make something of your life. So obviously, if you're not making anything of your life, it's, you're not getting anywhere. You're not going to be fulfilled. Or perhaps it's not so much that you're without direction. It's just you can't focus. It's much the same kind of thing. It's, your life is like a treadmill. You're constantly moving. You're moving and moving, but you never get any traction or make any progress. Yes. You see, this is what happens when, we're constantly on the move. We don't have any design plan for our life. We're not intentional. We just go with the latest thing thrown at us, or we let others dictate what we do. We have no real direction. Instead of us leading our life is leading us. And therefore we get nowhere. We're nothing more than a busybody. But a busybody doesn't within itself make for a successful or fulfilled life. There's not much happiness in just being busy, but not progressing. So whichever it is, if your life is a chaotic mess, or you're without direction, or maybe it's without focus, whichever one it is, you see, you won't experience peace, and therefore you won't be fulfilled. So, what is the answer? I mean, I think that's something we'd all like to know. No one likes to feel like their life is passing them by and they're not making anything of it. Like we're just wasting away. So, what is the answer and what is the antithesis to this mess of a problem? What is it that what is it that we are to do? Well, I want to share 3 simple steps that I believe will help us. I have titled it 3 Simple Steps to Claim the Fulfillment We Desire. And the first one is focus. Yes. Focus. Focus your mind. Focus your mind on Him, on the blessings He's given you, on the blessings that He's granted to you, on the sacrifices that He's made for you. Consider the magnitude of these blessings and of the sacrifice that He's made on your behalf, on behalf of your loved ones. And take a moment to consider how you can pass that on, how you can share these blessings with others, to touch lives, to impact others. For we all know that when we bless others, we experience blessing. We feel much better about who we are. We even become fulfilled when we see we're making a difference in the lives of others. So 1, focus. Focus your mind. 2, the second one is free. Free your hands and your feet. Once you've got this caption in your mind of who you'll bless, how you'll pass these blessings on, how you'll make sacrifices in your own life to lift others to be that blessing, go forth and do it. Be his hands and his feet to this dying world who's longing for answers. Yes. Be that good Samaritan that Jesus described in Luke chapter 10. So 2, free your hands and your feet. Then 3, fill your heart. Fill your heart with him, with joy and gladness. Celebrate the life he's given you. As we think of this, I'm reminded of, what many of the people of the Jewish race, of the Jewish faith today still do. Many of them do. And it was something that was a custom back in the day, in biblical times. And that was of the 3 feasts or festivals, as they're sometimes called. And you had the Feast of Booths, which was where they lived in these little booths for a short period of time to remind them of how their life was at one point, and to remember how that was. So when they see how they have it so much better now, they don't forget where they came from. Then it would help them. All of these festivals were meant to, be a memorial to remind them, to remember of what God had done for them, how God brought them into a better life. No longer are they in these little booths, but there would be a period of time where they would, take a moment during that festival to live in the booths, to remind them of what it once was like. And it would be a memorial to commemorate, the life that God brought them out of and where they're at now. Or you look at the feast of the Passover, when God, delivered them out of bondage from the hands of Pharaoh in Egypt. Or you look at the Feast of Weeks. That was a feast, a festival that, sometimes called the Feast of Pentecost. It was one where they took time to remember the bountiful harvest that God had given them. No, the idea was not to lose sight of these, because it's easy to get busy with our everyday life and it falls to the wayside. If someone asks us about it, yeah, we might be able to recall it. But if it was never asked or never brought up, then we forget all about it. And if we don't remember it, if it's not there with us in the forefront of our minds, it's buried in the recesses of our heart, then we certainly don't celebrate it. But that's what they're to do. And that's what we're to do. Fill your heart with him, with joy and gladness, and celebrate the life that he's given you. That's what makes the Christian life fun. Many people outside the Christian life tend to think that, there is it's just drab rules and way of life supposed to be. It takes away the fun of life, but not so. Take time to remember those, even if you don't, go through and, don't recognize the 3 Jewish feasts that they recognize. Still have your own way of remembering, what God's done for you. Look at your own life, perhaps to where you once were and where you are now. What can you do? What can you put in place to celebrate that, to remember that, to recall those times? Maybe it's a group of you, get together and you share just where you once were and how your life's better now. And then maybe there's something you do. There's some act of service you do to commemorate that, to show that, to try to help others to have a better life now. Whatever it is, find that way. Fill your heart with Him, with that joy and gladness by celebrating what He's done and commemorating that through an act of service to Him, and for others. So, friends, there's a lot to be said about this, but, if we can have a way to, find a means to enjoy life, then we're not going to be aching and groping to be filled with this, with that, with this, with that. We're not going to be looking for that handout. Instead of looking for ways that others can bless us, we can be the blesser. And in doing so, we get to choose how we will bless. We're in control, or at least we have the lead. Maybe that's a better way of saying it other than control. We have the lead. We take the lead because we choose how we'll do it. Whereas if we're always looking for others to feed us, to bless us, first of all, we got to find someone. Plus, that doesn't mean they're going to do it even if we find them. And if they do it, are they going to do it the way we want to do it? Want them to do it? I mean, there's so much we have no say in if we're looking for others to bless us. But if we can be the blesser, to be that feeder who feeds others goodness, who lifts them and loves them, who brings them into a better state of mind, to helps them to enjoy life, we naturally are fed. We naturally are blessed and encouraged when we see the impact we've had. And in light of these, as we think of, focusing your mind, freeing your hands and your feet, and filling your heart, I love how Marianne Williamson put it. I mean, she has a very great quote here. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Now, haven't you found that to be true? I mean, when your light shines, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And many times, for whatever reason, many people don't like to be the first. Once they see that somebody else has gone and done it and has decided to do that or be that, then they'll come along. But they won't until that first person goes. And so being that first person, the initiator, the one who steps out of the crowd to be the first, you grant others permission to do the same. And as a result, you become known as this light, this, encouraging figure, this beacon of light, that just your mere presence, as you step out of the crowd, you liberate yourself, you free yourself, and you become that light that shines forth. And just your mere presence will liberate others, will free them. They'll feel so good when they see you. You'll be that one they look to, that one that, they feed off of, that, they see you as the leader, the blesser, the one who helps them to have life, to experience life, a better life. Yep. I mean, all too often, we get caught up in the rut of life, whether we're so busy doing stuff or, whatever happens, we tend to lose sight of how much better life is when we step forth to bless others. We get caught up on our own agenda, our own tasks, what it is that we want, what we should have, or so we claim. But if we can just bless others, be that light, be that Barnabas, that son of encouragement, to be that light of the world that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16, he said, "For you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, so it gives light to everyone in the house." In the same way, So let your light shine that you may see your good deeds, so that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. And actually, I messed up there myself. But in the Matthew 5:13-16, it goes on, says that you are the salt of the earth. You know, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. But it talks about salt and light in there. But it says, how can a salt, how can it be made salty again if it loses that saltiness? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. Then he goes on to say, you are the light of the world. But let's be that light, that salt, that preservative that preserves life for others. Too often, we just go through life and we're not truly living. We're just existing. Let's preserve life. Give it flavor. Make it worthwhile. Where others can taste the goodness of life. And be that light that shines, that others may see your good deeds and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Friends, I got a few more things, a couple other stuff I want to share with you but we're going to step away to our second commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Wow, that was insightful. Stay tuned as we go on a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Insights to Incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Are you seeking a speaker or coach who speaks life into your people? If so, look no further. Brandon Lawson is one who will inspire and motivate his audience, as well as empathize and relate to all. Reach out to Brandon and let him be your speaker and life coach by sending an email to brandon@connectandimpact.net or by calling him at 513-708-1517. Brandon looks forward to speaking with you, to you, and for you. Let's connect and impact today. Insights to Incite, a real show with real-life messages. This show, which can be found on radio, TV, and our podcast, gives us insight to incite us to action and to excellence. Watch and or listen to Insights to Incite live at noon Eastern Time every Thursday on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. Check out our past episodes on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Join us each week, and together we will escape the mundane. We are back with more Insights to Incite, so get ready and tune in to listen and watch. Now once again, let's join Brandon Lawson.
So, as we think of how we will be that salt and that light, how we will be that son of encouragement, as you try to, contemplate and try to uncover how you'll do it, what concrete ways you will be this. There's a poem I want to share with you. I believe I shared this a ways back in one of the shows that I've done, but I know it's been quite some time. And it speaks of a man who took it upon himself to build this bridge. It's titled The Bridge Builder by William Allen Dromgoole. And it goes, an old man going a lone highway came at the evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The rolling stream had no fears for him. He turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow traveler near, you are wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at eventide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said. There followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. The chasm that was not to me, to the fair-headed youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. The Bridge Builder. What will you do? How will you give with no strings attached? So, as you think of others who have blessed you, who you can look to as they're instrumental in your life, they're always a shining light. I mean, rarely do you find them in the dark. No. Can you picture, you got in mind anybody you can point to that comes to mind that is would fit that depiction? Well, I don't know who you have in mind or who you're thinking of. I would venture to say that those people are a giver. And yet they still learn how to make some time for themselves. Because when we overextend ourselves, which can easily happen if we're not careful, when we overextend ourselves, that's when we tend to flare up. First, our body's flaring up. We're aching, our joints are sore, we're hurting, and then it turns to emotional pain. Then that spills over and out of us, and we flare up at others. So while it is always good to be a giver, to share, to bless others, learn to receive the blessing as well. And don't overextend yourself to where you turn into someone you never meant to be. Be that giver, share with others, be that light, light the path, light the room you come in. Be that one that others are always happy to see. Because the fact of the matter is, when someone is truly a light, a beacon of light, an encourager who fills the room with joy and gladness, when you or whoever it is that defines that defines you and such. If there's anyone that doesn't see you in good graces, that has something against you, it's only because you are better than them. You are that light and they are not. There's a lot of times people are envious of others because they see how so many would enjoy you. So many appreciate you, yet they don't get that same reception, there's not that same admiration for them as there is for you. If you happen to be that one who is lacking, who doesn't get that reception, or who is not admired, not appreciated, perhaps it would do you well to step out of the crowd, to be that light, to be that giver, to share, to be one who blesses others. You, in fact, can start a whole new wave of goodness. You can start a trend that carries on. Instead of it being a drab, dull, boring day after day, it can be a fun, joyous, good life day after day. Friends, we are nearing the end of our show today, and I just want to thank you again for joining us. And I realize that never is everything that I say gonna, be what you agree with. I mean, it would be unreasonable to think that we would always see everything alike, for I know we won't. And while we won't always see everything eye to eye, still I invite you to join me here on Eye to Eye, Insights to Incite. We are here every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. And we're happy you're here today, and we look forward to you coming back, joining us next week for another episode of Insights to Incite. Thank you.
Wow, what an insightful show. Thanks for listening in and watching today. If you missed any part of today's show or any other episode, check it out on iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. Now take today's insight and utilize it. Incite yourself to action and to excellence in the week ahead, and join us again next Thursday and every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time for another insightful session with Brandon Lawson as he speaks to us and shares some more insights to incite right here on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV.